Winter, 172 AD, the Danube frontier. 20,000 Roman soldiers sleep beside a frozen river. The fires are dying. The sentries are changing watch. Tomorrow men will fight and die. But tonight, only one lamp is still burning. Inside the largest tent in the Roman Empire sits the most powerful man on earth. He is not studying battle plans. He is not issuing orders. He is not preparing for war. He is writing to himself about how difficult people are, about his temper, about his impatience, about his exhaustion, about how often he feels he is failing. And that changes everything, because the man writing these words is Marcus Aurelius, the emperor of Rome, the ruler of nearly 70 million people, the most powerful man in the Western world. We call his writing meditations. Marcus Aurelius never did. He never gave it a title. In Greek, it was simply things to myself, private notes, nothing more. They were never intended for publication, never intended for history, and never intended for us. And yet, nearly 2,000 years later, soldiers read them. CEOs read them. Presidents read them. Therapists recommend them. Millions of people turn to them when life becomes difficult. Most people think the Meditations is a philosophy book. It isn't. At least not primarily. Read it as philosophy and you find a wise man. Read it as a private document and you find something else entirely. You find a man struggling, a man correcting himself, a man arguing with himself, a man trying every day not to become someone he does not want to be. The question is not, why was Marcus Aurelius so wise? The question is, what was he fighting every night that made him need to write these reminders at all? Because inside these pages, if you read them carefully, you discover something history rarely tells you. Marcus Aurelius was not writing down wisdom. He was writing down resistance. Resistance against anger, against self-pity, against vanity, against exhaustion, against fear, against the temptation to stop trying. And the most remarkable part is this: the war never ended. For 19 years, he wrote the same corrections, the same reminders, the same instructions for tomorrow, which raises a disturbing possibility. What if the greatest emperor in Roman history never mastered himself at all? What if mastery was never the point? What if the real achievement was something much harder? Showing up to the work anyway, every morning, for 19 years. To understand that, we need to understand the enemy Marcus Aurelius spent his life fighting, and why history completely misunderstood what it was. Before the first aide arrived each morning, before the first senator demanded something, before the first military dispatch crossed his desk, Marcus Aurelius would sit alone and write a list, not of strategies, not of victories, not of political plans, a list of difficult people, the arrogant, the ungrateful, the deceitful, the envious, the selfish. Think about that. The ruler of the largest empire on earth, beginning his day by preparing for irritating people. That tells us something important, something profoundly human. Marcus Aurelius was not struggling against barbarians. Not primarily. He was struggling against his reactions to them. And that struggle would become the foundation of one of the most important psychological documents ever written. Marcus Aurelius understood something most people never do. The mind does not fail all at once. It fails gradually, one reaction at a time, one resentment at a time, one excuse at a time. And because he understood this, he built weapons, not against other people, against himself. The first appears in the opening pages of the Meditations. It is easy to miss, because it sounds almost too simple. Every morning, Marcus would remind himself what kind of people he was about to meet: the arrogant, the dishonest, the selfish, the ungrateful, the jealous, the manipulative. Most people read that passage and assume he is complaining. He isn't. He is preparing. Think about what normally happens. Someone insults you, disappoints you, betrays your expectations, and your mind reacts as if something unexpected has occurred. Marcus was trying to remove the surprise, because surprise amplifies emotion. If you expect difficulty, difficulty loses part of its power. 19 centuries later, psychologists would discover something remarkable. People who mentally rehearse challenges before they occur experience less emotional reactivity when those challenges arrive. Marcus Aurelius had stumbled upon one of the most effective emotional regulation techniques ever documented. Without laboratories, without neuroscience, without psychology, just observation. He wasn't writing philosophy. He was preparing for Tuesday, and that was only the first weapon. The second was stranger, more difficult, and perhaps more powerful. At the height of his reign, the Roman Empire stretched across 3 continents. Millions of people lived under his authority. Cities rose and fell based on his decisions. Armies moved because he commanded them to move. Most rulers would become intoxicated by that. History suggests most did. Marcus tried something else. He would imagine himself rising above it, higher, 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 until Rome became a dot, then a region, then a speck, then nothing. The empire disappeared. His reputation disappeared. His ambitions disappeared. His fears disappeared. Everything he considered enormous became small. Today, this technique is known as the view from above. But for Marcus, it was something else, a defense against illusion. Because power creates a dangerous distortion, the illusion that your current problem is the center of reality. Marcus was constantly reminding himself that it wasn't. The criticism, the politics, the uncertainty, the anxiety, the pressure, none of it was as large as it felt. And that insight changed everything. Because a mind that can change perspective can change experience. But there was a third weapon, and this one may have been the most important of all. The plague arrived first, then war, then betrayal, then more war. Entire regions collapsed. Frontiers burned, resources vanished. People died by the thousands. Many emperors would have asked, "Why is this happening to me?" Marcus asked a different question. What is this trying to teach me? That single shift altered the course of his life. He trained himself to treat obstacles as training. Difficult people became opportunities to practice patience. Loss became an opportunity to practice resilience. Fear became an opportunity to practice courage. The obstacle itself became the lesson. Modern psychology calls this cognitive reframing. Marcus Aurelius simply called it duty. And here we discover something extraordinary. The most powerful man in the world spent much of his life doing something most people never learned to do. He stopped demanding that reality match his preferences. Instead, he trained himself to match reality. This is where many people misunderstand Marcus Aurelius. They imagine a man who had achieved inner peace, a man who had solved the human condition, a man untouched by anger, untouched by anxiety, untouched by doubt. The meditations reveal the opposite. The existence of these weapons tells us something important. If Marcus needed them, then Marcus was struggling. No one builds armor against an enemy that does not exist. And that raises a deeper question. If the greatest stoic in history kept returning to the same reminders, what exactly was he fighting? because the deeper you read the meditations, the more unsettling the answer becomes. Most biographies tell the story this way. Marcus Aurelius faced adversity. He developed wisdom. He mastered himself and became the philosopher-king. It is a beautiful story. There is only one problem. The Meditations does not support it. Because if Marcus Aurelius truly conquered anger, why does he keep writing about anger? If he truly conquered impatience, why does he keep reminding himself to be patient? If he truly conquered ego, why does he keep warning himself about vanity? Year after year, page after page, the same battle appears again and again and again. At first, this seems disappointing. We want heroes. We want transformation. We want the moment the student becomes the master. Marcus Aurelius gives us something less satisfying and much more useful. He gives us reality. The private writings of a man who never stopped needing the lesson. One entry warns himself not to become angry. Another warns him not to seek approval. Another warns him not to waste time. Another reminds him that death is coming. Then, years later, the same themes appear again and again. The repetition is impossible to ignore, which raises an uncomfortable possibility. What if Marcus Aurelius never achieved the thing we think he achieved? What if the goal was never mastery? What if the goal was maintenance? Think about the Roman Empire itself. Every day, roads had to be repaired, borders had to be defended, supplies had to be delivered, laws had to be enforced. No emperor ever woke up and declared, "The empire is finished. It now runs itself." Maintenance was the job. Marcus eventually realized the same thing was true of the mind. The work never ends, not because you failed, because you are human. And this is where modern psychology arrives at almost the same conclusion. People often imagine emotional resilience as a permanent achievement, a destination, a state of arrival. Research suggests something different. The healthiest minds are not the minds that never drift. They are the minds that notice the drift and return. Return to perspective. Return to discipline. Return to values. Return to awareness. Again and again and again. Marcus Aurelius was doing exactly that, not winning the war, returning to the fight. The distinction matters, because one creates perfectionism, the other creates growth. Perfectionism says, if I were stronger, I would not struggle with this anymore. Marcus Aurelius would disagree. The evidence is sitting on every page he left behind. Even the emperor struggled. Even the stoic struggled. Even the most disciplined man in the world struggled. The difference was not that he escaped the battle. The difference was that he kept showing up. For 19 years, while plague swept through the empire, while wars consumed the frontier, while political rivals maneuvered for influence, while people disappointed him, while circumstances refused to cooperate, he returned to the same page, the same reminders, the same corrections, not because the system failed, because the system was working. Every return was proof. Proof that awareness had defeated impulse one more time. Proof that reflection had interrupted reaction. Proof that he had chosen who he wanted to be for one more day. And suddenly, the Meditations become something entirely different. Not a philosophy book, not a collection of wisdom, not a manual written by a master, a journal written by a practitioner, a man practicing every day for nearly 2 decades, which may be the most important lesson Marcus Aurelius leaves behind. Greatness was not built in the moments he succeeded. It was built in the moments he returned, the mornings he started again, the days he corrected course, the times he caught himself drifting and came back. Because in the end, Marcus Aurelius was not fighting to become perfect. He was fighting to remain conscious. And that is a battle no victory can permanently win, only continue. So what was Marcus Aurelius actually fighting? Not barbarians, though they threatened the empire. Not plague, though it killed millions. Not political enemies, though they surrounded him. Those were the visible battles. The battle Marcus wrote about every night was invisible. It was the battle between reaction and reflection, between impulse and discipline, between the person he was and the person he was trying to become. And suddenly something remarkable happens. The Meditations stops feeling ancient. Because every human being understands that war, the temptation to become bitter, the temptation to become cynical, the temptation to believe that difficult circumstances excuse becoming someone you never intended to be. Marcus Aurelius faced those temptations every day. And every day, he returned to the work. Not because he was a philosopher, because he was human. History remembers Marcus Aurelius as the philosopher-king. But that title hides something important. Kings are remembered for victories. Marcus Aurelius left behind something far more valuable: evidence. Evidence that even the most disciplined person in the world struggled. Evidence that wisdom is not a permanent state. Evidence that emotional strength is not something you achieve once and keep forever. It must be rebuilt. Again, and again, and again. For 19 years, Marcus Aurelius woke up and continued the same conversation with himself. The same corrections, the same reminders, the same battle. And perhaps that is why the Meditations survived when so many other books disappeared. Because it is not a record of perfection. It is a record of effort. Think about that. Out of all the monuments Rome built, all the statues, all the palaces, all the military victories, the thing that survived most powerfully was a private notebook. A notebook that was never intended to survive at all. Because the deepest part of Marcus Aurelius was not the emperor. It was the man trying to become better than his impulses. And that struggle never becomes obsolete. Not in Rome, not in the modern world, not in any century. Which brings us back to the question we began with. What was Marcus Aurelius fighting every night? The same thing most people are fighting right now. The tendency to drift, to react, to forget, to become unconscious. The war was never against the world. The war was against himself. And perhaps the reason his words still matter 2,000 years later is because the battlefield has never changed. Marcus Aurelius died in 180 AD. His empire disappeared. His armies vanished. His enemies are gone. But his private war remains. Because every morning, someone wakes up and has to fight it again. And maybe that someone is you. One final question. If someone found your private journal tonight, what battle would they discover you were fighting? And would they see someone winning? Or simply someone returning to the work? Power shapes history. Human nature repeats it. Subscribe to Empire Psychology, because history is not the story of what happened. It is the story of what keeps happening.